back in studio. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on YouTube as well as on Instagram, X, Twitch, and on Facebook. I am Bryson Carver. It is great to be with you on a Monday. Listen, it was a wild football weekend, and we'll get into all of it. Listen, I admitted it last week, but yesterday sealed it. Dead wrong on the Chiefs. Didn't really get a chance to talk about Philly's loss to the Chargers, but then they came back yesterday and just demolished the Raiders. Who hasn't this season? Sorry, Chris Maye. I apologize. Talk about around the NFL, all the games. Talk about Matthew Stafford, how he is the absolute, no question, no doubt about it, runaway MVP at this particular juncture in the season. Josh Allen putting the Bills on his back, getting a win against the Patriots, and exposing a fatal flaw that could come back and bite the Patriots come playoff time. Talk about that. Also getting to Bo Nix. Listen, I have been a heavy Bo Nix critic on this show. That said, yesterday was the best game of his career, while also the Green Bay Packers are dead as Super Bowl contenders thanks to the terrible Micah Parsons injury. Talk about that. The Cowboys season is really, really over after they lost to the Minnesota Vikings yesterday. Kind of a post-mortem on Dallas' season and on George Pickens. And, of course, recap of the rest of Week 15 around the National Football League. You know, it's funny. I was going to do a Diego Pavia segment. I really, really was. And I'm like, you know what? I'm going to do a carving up the context on that. Like, the show's so loaded. There's so much great NFL to talk about. I don't want to muddy it up by talking about Diego Pavia. So we're going to talk about that on Wednesday's show. Very excited about that. Of course, also, I didn't get a chance to do this on Wednesday because I was traveling home on Wednesday. Did get a chance to do it on Friday because no laptop charger. So we're back in studio today. I'm going to give like a brief sort of retelling, so to speak, of my trip to New York City. First time to New York, the opportunity to do Clash, which is a House of Highlights show. Kind of talk about that. Basically tell what I can before the episode drops. We're not sure when, but obviously very much looking forward to that coming out. But let's get started on today's show. But first, as if they weren't dead to begin with, the Kansas City Chiefs are really, really dead as Super Bowl contenders. And forget that, as playoff contenders this season. They were eliminated officially by the Los Angeles Chargers by a final score of 16-13. And more importantly, long-term, Patrick Mahomes, who had already been dealing with a knee injury through most of the season, is gone for certainly the rest of this year and maybe part of next year with a torn ACL. Mahomes actually tweeted about it after the game. And after the diagnosis, he said, "Don't know why this had to happen, and not gonna lie, it hurts. But all we can do now is trust in God and attack every single day over and over again. Thank you, Chiefs Kingdom, for always supporting me and for everyone who has reached out and sent prayers. I will be back stronger than ever." And he's got the clock emoji, obviously indicating, hey, only a matter of time. I'll be back and doing Patrick Mahomes things. And, you know, it's funny when you talk about, we'll discuss sort of the long-term ramifications for Kansas City to do like a post-mortem, not just on the Chiefs season, but really on this run that Kansas City has been on. I don't think the dynasty is over. Listen, New England went a decade without winning a Super Bowl. I don't think the Chiefs are going to wait that long before winning again, but sometimes there are dynasty gap years. The Niners dealt with it in the 80s. The Patriots really dealt with it between the 2000s and 2010s. It's normal in dynasties for that to happen. But on this iteration, that's over. But for Mahomes, I felt like the discussion around this player, the last 2 years in particular, because I think when he's coming off his MVP, his second MVP 2022, and his second Super Bowl title, Chiefs go into 23 as the defending champions. Remember, they had that 11-6 year, had to go on the road throughout the playoffs. And it felt like there was kind of Mahomes was great, a little bit of a down year, but listen, the receivers for Kansas City, Kadarius Toney, some of these guys, Marquez Valdes-Scantling, even Kelsey to a certain degree, cannot catch a cold. So it kind of gave Mahomes the benefit of the doubt there. Last year was, they're winning these games. They're 15-2, best record in the NFL, but Mahomes' stats aren't sexy enough for our liking. And then this year, the numbers were better, point differential was better, but they couldn't close games the way they could last year. And I think we'll show you Mahomes' numbers over the course of the season. It's kind of a mixed bag. Still top 10 in touchdown passes, fourth in pass yards per game, fourth in QBR, but 22nd completion, 19th in rating. His pass rating is not even 90, which is shockingly low for Patrick Mahomes. It's like, what are you going to do with that? I think when you look back at this Kansas City Chiefs season, I say this more so once the NFL season is concluded, we sort of look at all 32 teams, or at least the teams of note. When we look at Kansas City, what are we going to say? Well, we're going to say it's the first time they missed the playoffs in the Andy Reid era since 2014. Matter of fact, only the second time in the Andy Reid era that they missed the playoffs, 2014 and now 2025. We're going to look at the fact that they had the first losing record in the Andy Reid era. I think they were like 9-7, 10-6, something like that in 2014. So they weren't bad. This year, 6-8. Not a very good football team. Losing record. And I think we're also going to look when it comes to Mahomes at, it wasn't always his best, but O-line couldn't protect anybody. Receivers were dealing with injuries. I think we're going to look back, if Kelsey's almost certainly going to retire. Defense was a shell that it was a year ago. I think we're going to look back and say, I'm not so sure how many quarterbacks could have made this work. Is that if you look at even some of the greatest quarterbacks playing the game today, Mahomes, Burrow, Dak, there's only so much you can do with the bad offensive line. You'll have moments of brilliance. Mahomes had it here and there against Baltimore, even in losses against Dallas or against Jacksonville. Dak had it through points this season. Joe Burrow, same thing. But the offensive line cannot protect you. There's only so much you can do. The weapons are almost irrelevant. Because I think Burrow, Dak, and Mahomes have excellent weapons. I know people are kind of bashing the Chiefs, White House today, Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy. I think those are good players. I've said that for years. I think those are good, solid wide receivers. Are they wide receiver? Excuse me. Are they wide receiver one? Not sure about that. But there's only so much you can do with the bad O-line. We can talk about the lack of weapons Josh Allen has in Buffalo, but hey, he's got time to throw. He's got Deion Dawkins and some of these guys up front giving him time to throw. The offensive line for the Bills has had a lot of cohesion there. Chiefs, not so much. You got to move on from Joe Thuney. You got to, Trey Smith, my guy from Tennessee, go Vols. Shout out to Trey Smith. He's been dealing with injuries. Creed Humphrey's a great player, but he is a center. There's only so much impact that guys like that can have. So I think when we look back, Mahomes certainly did not have anything close to his best year. I think he was better this year than the last couple based on what he had to carry. But there also is an element of this with this injury. Patrick Mahomes' greatest, and Nick Wright has talked about this. He's obviously a diehard Chiefs fan. I'm first things first. He's talked about this for years. Like Mahomes' hidden superpower is his legs, is his mobility. He tends to use that more in the postseason than he does in the regular season. You can think about, remember that run against the Titans? Terrible tackling by Tennessee, but in that AFC title game when he broke like 5 tackles to score, the run in the Super Bowl on a bad ankle. I think it's the best moment of Mahomes' career. Run on a bad ankle in the Super Bowl against Philly to get them into scoring range, the field goal range to win the game. The 4th down keeper against the Niners in the Super Bowl, 4th in the Super Bowl, gets the first down. Like Mahomes' legs have always been kind of a hidden part of his greatness. This year wasn't so hidden because he had to use it a lot. There were games where Mahomes was the Chiefs' leading rusher. Parks, the run game, non-existent. Kareem Hunt, great short down distance back, not much more than that. Isaiah Pacheco, good rookie year, cannot stay healthy the last 2 years. And Chiefs fans, were telling me on TikTok, hey, I think Brashad Smith is the kid's name. He's good. Maybe he will be good. Didn't really see that pop from him this year. Maybe that's an offensive line problem, not, a running back depth problem, but they don't really have a guy that Mahomes gives the balls to, and here he comes. Josh Allen has that with James Cook. A lot of the best teams, Caleb Williams has that with the 2 running backs he has with, Monungai and Swift. Like a running game, even in 2025, it's not the end-all be-all, but boy, it sure matters. Lamar Jackson's got Derrick Henry and that other back they've got. I think Mitchell might be his name. Like they've got those guys. They've got depth at that position. The Chiefs really don't. And so what I think it will force Kansas City to do this offseason, and probably the offseason after that, because they're certainly not going to be contenders next year unless Mahomes comes back and has a great season. But if you remember Brady, because people are kind of doing the comparison, hey, Brady, Mahomes, middle of their career. What was it, year 8 for both players, tore their ACL. Brady came back in 2009. It was one of the worst seasons of his career. Could we see that from Mahomes, a guy who is more reliant on his legs than Tom Brady was? That's very possible. Hope, certainly we're not wishing it, but that very well could be the case. Over the next couple of offseasons, Brett Veach, who I think is one of the better GMs in the league, but he's fallen into a little bit of what all great dynasties tend to fall into. I think my Warriors have over the course of time since KD left in 2019. I think, again, some of the better dynasties we've seen, the Lakers, when Shaq, departed in 2004, all of the great dynasties deal with a process where you kind of take your best player for granted. You're like, oh, just by virtue of having Kobe Bryant, Steph Curry, Patrick Mahomes, just by virtue of their greatness. Well, they need help too. Maybe not as much help as the middle of the road guys or the stars, but all the icons need help. Bird needed McHale and Parrish. Okay, Magic needed Kareem. Kobe needed Shaq and Gasol. Steph needed Durant and Clay. And Draymond, of course. And Mahomes needs an offensive line and a running game. And God bless Travis Kelce. We all know he's got a pretty dope, off-season or not off-season, post-career coming up ahead of him. But it's over. He came into this year in better shape than he has, and it's still, He's dropping passes. He can't get open as consistently. We know Kelsey's never been a great blocker. Like, it's over for Travis. And we can talk about him once he is retired as one of the 5 greatest tight ends indisputably in the history of the game. But for Kansas City, like I said, I think it would be for a player of Mahomes' caliber and for a player with the competitive streak that Mahomes has. Because we that's kind of been talked about in national television today. I give the media credit, for that, is that Mahomes, like all the great athletes, the Bradys, the Montanas, the Peyton Mannings, the Joe Montanas, Kobe, Jordan, LeBron, Steph, the thing that they all have in common is they are almost unhealthily competitive. Patrick Mahomes has been dealing with a knee injury for most of the season. But you know what? Chiefs, we're still alive. I'm going to put my body on the line. He ran for a touchdown early in the game, and eventually the body just gives out. Every human body has limits. And so for a player of that greatness, with that resume, with that type of competitive streak, I think it would be very, very, very unwise to say, they're done. He's never going to win a Super Bowl again. There was a time people thought about that about Brady. Guess what? He won 4 more. But this iteration of the Chiefs dynasty is dead. It's over. The offensive line is in shambles. The receiving core, again, I think is better than people give it credit for, but probably could use like a true number 1. Rice and Worthy are good 2s, not necessarily a 1. They need to upgrade their running game, and they need to replenish the defensive draft, which Brett Veach has proved through the Tyreek Hill trade he's capable of doing. But Chris Jones is getting older. Kelsey's at the end of his rope. And let's be honest, Andy Reid's not getting younger. Andy Reid's in his late 60s. Now, Pete Carroll's coaching in his mid-70s. It's not going so well for the Raiders, but it can be done. But do you think Andy Reid's going to want to sit through a 1, maybe a 2-year sort of retool, rebuild type of situation in Kansas City? I don't know. But the good news for the Chiefs is it will be the most sought-after head coaching job in NFL history. Let's see. Do I coach Patrick Mahomes or do I coach a team that doesn't know if they have their quarterback yet? I am going to coach Patrick Mahomes. But for this iteration of the Chiefs dynasty, it's over, but it will go down. No, it won't go down as the greatest dynasty ever. That's New England's. I'm not sure they'll ever be touched. They went 18 years, 6 Super Bowls, 9 appearances. That's never going to be touched. But as far as a 7-year run from 2018 to 2024, it's almost unparalleled in the Super Bowl era. We could show you. So let's show the Chiefs' 7-year run, because we're talking Super Bowl era dynasty. The Packers were technically a dynasty during the Super Bowl era, but part of their dominance came pre-Super Bowl era. So we're just going steel curtain Steelers on to now. So for the Kansas City Chiefs, this is their 7-year run, and it's pretty darn unimpeachable. 7 division titles, won 77.5% of their games, 7 AFC title game appearances, 5 Super Bowl appearances, and they won 3 of those Super Bowl titles, including a back-to-back one in there. So compare that to the other greatest 7-year runs in the history of the sport. Let's put up the Pittsburgh Steelers, steel curtain, 73 to 79. 6 division titles, 76% win percentage, so slightly below Kansas City in division titles and win percentage. Fewer AFC title game appearances by 2. Now they do have more Super Bowl wins, but less Super Bowl appearances. So I would say just a tick. If they're not equal, they're a tick below the Kansas City Chiefs. For the 49ers, their greatest 7-year run, because they won a Super Bowl early in the Montana era, but then kind of had a little bit of a drought. So from 84 to 90, 6 division titles, higher win percentage, 79% or 78% basically, but fewer conference championship game appearances, fewer Super Bowl appearances by 2, but as many Super Bowls, 3. We know Montana never lost a Super Bowl. The Dallas Cowboys, their greatest run, it's respect to them. Amazing, not close to Kansas City's greatest 7-year run. 5 division titles, 67% win percentage, 4 conference championship appearances, 3 less than the Chiefs. 2 fewer Super Bowl appearances than the Chiefs, same amount of Super Bowl titles as the Chiefs. And of course, the Patriots, I had to choose. Is it 01 to 07? Or was it 2012, 2018? The numbers say 12 to 18 is the greatest 7-year run in Patriots history. Just as many division titles, as many conference championship game appearances, 1 fewer Super Bowl appearance, as many Super Bowl titles. So in terms of sustained postseason success, which Patrick Mahomes, by the way, already second all-time in postseason wins, will probably never catch Brady. But hey, listen, we never thought Brady would get as high as he did, right? This run, as currently constituted, is dead. It is over. They're going to have to retool this thing. But as long as they got 15, again, folks, there are certain athletes, man. Brady, Montana, Kobe, Jordan, LeBron, Steph, Mahomes. If you've got them, you always have a chance to win a championship. I've said about Dak Prescott. If you got a guy like Dak Prescott, you get a chance to win every game you play. Dak's obviously not in the caliber of Mahomes. With Mahomes, with the athletes I just mentioned, you have a chance to win a championship each and every season. It's up to the Chiefs to rebuild this thing and ensure a season does not progress like this, and certainly for Mahomes does not end the way that it did for him. Wishing him all the very best. And like I said, it's not the greatest dynasty ever. That goes to New England from 2001 to 2018. The greatest 7-year run in history, Patriots from 12 to 18 is close. Niners mid to late 80s is close. Steelers throughout the majority of the 70s, 73 to 79 to be exact, close. Cowboys aren't really close as far as their dynasty. It's Kansas City, the greatest 7-year run in the Super Bowl era. We've got a bunch of comments in here. My guy, Grady Edwards, is in here. What's up, Grady? He says, good evening, Bryson. Good evening to you, Grady. Interesting take, and I've heard this brought up. He says, they need to bring Eric Bieniemy back. Andy Reid is fine. I don't like Matt Nagy there. Most Chiefs fans don't either. Kelsey is still fine tight end, but they need to get someone under him and get some better wide receivers. They'll be back. I really feel that. If you're a Buffalo, it's now or never this year. Oh, no question. I just don't think this will happen again. Everyone is entitled to an off year, but I do agree this version at least needs to be retooled and probably over. Mahomes and Andy Reid are not included. They're the two indispensable pieces. No question about it. And he says it's a retool, not a rebuild, in my opinion. Mahomes is 30, got many good years ahead. To your first point, and we don't have the stats, but I've seen them on other shows today. The first 5 years of his career, Bieniemy was Mahomes' OC. And for years, like, Bieniemy doesn't matter that much. Mahomes had like a 106. I think it was somewhere in this ballpark. Mahomes had like a 106 rating the first 5 years of his career with Bieniemy. And it's like 92 the last 3 years without Bieniemy. Now, he's the running backs coach with the Chicago Bears. And based on Chicago's run game, he's done a pretty good job, along with Ben Johnson there. But I would be kind of surprised if Andy Reid and Brett Veach didn't at least attempt to go after Bieniemy and try and bring him back. Because obviously, again, Mahomes had the greatest individual success of his career with Bieniemy. Won both of his MVPs with Bieniemy as the OC. So that's a good point by Grady. Transition to another team in the AFC West. The Denver Broncos. So coming into this year, there wasn't really anything about Denver that I didn't like. O-line I thought was amazing. It's been amazing. Receiving core wasn't. Blow your socks off. I've always, when people were saying, Courtland Sutton's a 2, I'm like, I don't know. He's a great route runner, good hands, size. Like, I think Courtland Sutton is a legit one. And he showed you a lot of that yesterday. Bo Nix, who we'll get to in a second, I was like, good rookie year. Maybe there's something to build off of there. Love the running game. And the defense is obviously, it's been better than anticipated. The pass rush is one of the best we've seen ever. They might break the sacks record single season for a team. Coaching staff, Sean Payton on the offense, Vance Joseph on the defense. There wasn't much not to like about Denver. But as the season progressed, they're barely surviving the Raiders, and they're having to get out against bad. They won 13-11 against the Jets. Like, I don't know about this team. Loss of the Chargers in a game they led by 7 late. I don't know if I trust this team. In large part, because I didn't think I trusted their quarterback. And by and large, I had reason to believe that. I remember doing a segment a month ago when they won 10-7 against Vegas at home, by the way, when we were going over Bo Nix's stats, and they were all like 21st, 29th, 20, like they were bad. Yesterday, and I know Micah Parsons went down, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes with Green Bay. But for Bo Nix, that was the most impressive ever been with him at any point in his career. Show Bo Nix's numbers. He was outstanding. Not 1, not 2, not 3, 4 touchdown passes. No picks, 67% completion, 302 passing yards, a 134.7 rating, QBR 0 to 100 of 88. So Bo Nix, accurate, moved really well. Really, Bo has been a great clutch player this year. It's like Bo Nix and Caleb Williams have been the two most clutch quarterbacks this season. Ironically, both from the 2024 draft, first round. But Bo wasn't doing it in the first 3.5 quarters. I'm not saying it's like a Tebow syndrome where Tebow was like god-awful and then turned it on the fourth. But it was, accuracy's not there. The deep ball stuff isn't there. Deep ball was working great yesterday, facing a pass rush when Micah Parsons was there for the majority of the game. For the first, 2.5 quarters of the game. Rashawn Gary, Van Ness, like you're dealing with a legit pass rush if you're Denver, if you're Bo Nix. People have said the secondary is a weakness for the Packers. Well, some people say the weakness for the Broncos is their receivers. And Bo Nix did what any franchise, if you're a franchise quarterback, to me, what that says, obviously you can win a championship with those guys, but also part of the reason for that, you elevate the guys around you. Bo Nix did that yesterday. Bo Nix was facing one of the most, ferocious defenses in the National Football League, a defense that has had Jared Goff guessing. Defenses that have had veteran quarterbacks not play their best football by any stretch of the imagination. And Bo Nix, the Broncos, put up an absolute masterclass against Denver. By the way, down 9, down 2 scores in the second half, end up finishing with 34. And so if you're a Denver Broncos, listen, we know about the pass rush. We know about Jonathan Cooper, Nick Benito, Zach Allen. Like their front 4, front 7. Greenlaw had some big hits yesterday. It's outstanding. Secondary, Surtain, who was great yesterday against Watson before Watson went down. Hufanga, who I've always been a fan of. Riley Moss might get cooked in the postseason before it's all said and done. If you're another team like Surtain's, if you're Denver, just have Surtain on the best receiver and have Riley Moss and have some safety help against the number 2, because he is the guy. He gets called for pass interference I feel like twice a game. He is not a great number 2 corner. The numbers are solid. The production, you don't always trust him. If you're Denver today in an AFC that is as wide open as it's ever been, and I mean as it's ever been, this is the first playoffs, going to be the first playoffs since 1998. I wasn't even born yet. I was 5 years away from being born. Without Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, and Patrick Mahomes. It's wide open. And we're going to talk about what that could benefit or in some ways post playoffs knock the Bills. But Denver, you want to talk about a home field advantage? Forget about the altitude. The altitude is what it is. We know that's always been something that's been the Broncos' favor. That's a legit home field advantage. I've talked about that with Minnesota, with Detroit, Kansas City, the Saints in their heyday, the Seahawks in their heyday. We hear about home field advantage. There are certain areas, whether it's because of weather, Green Bay, for example, or New England, there's certain venues in the NFL where the crowd has a legitimate impact on a team's productivity and their success. And the Denver Broncos can absolutely say that. They've been a raucous fan base for years. That's a tough place to go in and play. Playing Sean Payton off the bye, having the playoffs go through, Mile High Stadium, whatever it's called now, that could be huge for this team. With New England losing yesterday, I mean, Denver the rest of the way, all of a sudden, if I can pull this up here, their schedule doesn't look so brutal. Rest of the way. Now, Jacksonville, that's kind of tough, but Jacksonville at home, Jags are playing good football. Talk about Trevor later. Then you got at the Chiefs on Christmas. No Mahomes, probably no Kelsey. The Chiefs might just sit their guys and tank for a high pick. And then you have a home game against the Chargers. But by that point, depending on what happens between Baltimore and New England, you might have already wrapped up the 1 seed and you sit your guys. Now, that's always been a risky proposition. If you've got the 1 seed locked up in the last week of the season, do you give you guys 2 weeks off? That's always been kind of a legitimate debate among NFL insiders for years. If you got the 1 seed wrapped up before you end the season, you don't want to give your guys too much rest. It's the rest versus rust discussion. But I've been critical of Bo Nix. That was impressive. I went so far as in the show to say, despite the Broncos' talent, despite the fact that they have, I've said all season, the best offensive/defensive line combo in all of football by a long shot. Despite the head coach in Sean Payton, who we know has won a Super Bowl and has extensive playoff history and success back with the Saints, I don't trust number 10. He moves well. I like him. He's comfortable late. He's no choke artist, quite the opposite. But what does he do for the first 3.5 quarters ahead of that? Well, pretty outstanding yesterday, facing a ferocious Packers defense. We talked about it in the show, even without Micah Parsons last year, Packers were the 7th best defense in football. I think it was scoring defense. They were somewhere the 6th best defense or 7th best defense in football. So he is facing a real unit, up there, and rose to the occasion. The deep ball was as good as I've ever seen it. To Sutton, Mims, Denver's a real team, man. They really, really are. So shout out to the Broncos. As for Green Bay, man, that's as crushing a loss you'll see all NFL season. Not just because they were up 2 scores, lost the game. Not just that. Christian Watson, it doesn't look like the reports today, doesn't sound like there's any damage to his lungs or anything serious that could put him out beyond next week. So Christian Watson, who's been great since coming back from the ACL, has been a clear number 1 receiver for Jordan Love and the Packers. But their Super Bowl hopes came to an end yesterday with Micah Parsons' injury. I mean, there's just no other way around it. Micah Parsons, similar to Mahomes, tweeted to the fan base of Green Bay, "I may be sidelined, but I am not defeated. This injury is my greatest test, a moment God allowed to strengthen my testimony. I believe he walks with me through this storm and chose for me this fight because he knew my heart could carry it. I'm deeply grateful to the Packers organization and my teammates for their unwavering support, love, and belief in me during the season. I trust his timing, his plan, and his purpose. I will rise again. Well, a player of that caliber, I don't think there's any question about it. A guy who was probably going to finish second behind Myles Garrett for Defensive Player of the Year. If not for Myles Garrett, who's about to break the sack record probably next week against Buffalo, it would have been Micah Parsons. He's been as good, if not better than advertised when Green Bay acquired him. So when you take him off the field, when you take a guy who's leading the NFL in pressures, a guy who's second in the NFL, I believe, in sacks, you take that, or top 5 in sacks, you take that guy off the field for Green Bay. Rashawn Gary's a good pass rusher. You want him more to be your number 2 guy. I mean, you do. It's kind of like when the Rams had Aaron Donald and they had Von Miller and they had I forget the other pass rusher. His name escapes me. But like Von Miller, advanced age and stage of his career, he can be effective if Aaron Donald is drawing a double team. That's kind of how I feel about the Green Bay Packers moving forward. Rashawn Gary is a great number 2 pass rusher if Mike is drawing the requisite attention that he always has. And he was having a great third quarter yesterday. He was having a great game yesterday. Getting to Bo Nix. Bo Nix was just better, but he was getting to Bo Nix. He was bringing pressure. He had Green Bay in a spot where, okay, if we win this game, we're up 9 points. And that's one thing, too. Like, it felt like the loss of Micah just absolutely sucked the air out of that Packers team. The injury to Watson, too, because Watson got hurt on the interception that Surtain got on the throw by Jordan Love. That deflated the Micah Parsons injury. Felt like it just completely took any momentum, any good vibes, any sort of, okay, hey, we can get this game. I'm sure the Packers were aware of the fact that the Bears had won earlier that day. Hey, we have the tiebreaker of the Bears right now. We play them next week. We need to get a W in Denver. And now if you're the Packers today, you're sick. I mean, there's no two ways about it. Like, he's going to be back next year, hopefully just as explosive as he was previously. ACL surgeries, modern medicine in that regard has never been better. So Micah's still a young athlete. But the rest of the way, I mean, it's at the Bears, which the Packers oddly are a road favorite. That might be if I were a bet man on Friday, because Bears plus 1.5. That's a Saturday night game, so Chicago's going to be absolutely frigid. And then you have a home game against the Ravens the next Saturday. Then you go to Minnesota. Like, it feels like Green Bay probably finishes like 11-5-1 and as a wild card team. But let's just say that tiebreaker over Detroit helps them. It really, really does. Like that. Even forget the tiebreaker over Detroit. Just having the tie on their resume. If Green Bay goes 2-1, Lions were to win out, we'll talk about them later in the show, they still get in 11-5-1 to 11-6. So, but that's every legitimate Super Bowl contender, unless you have just a superstar all-world unicorn at quarterback. Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar in years past. And we know Lamar's had his struggles in the postseason. Jordan Love's had a great year. Jordan Love, by and large, has refrained from the turnovers that have plagued him in years past. But without a stopper, without your Mariano Rivera, so to speak, to close the game where you got a lead, you feel good about yourself, you're trying to milk clock. Hey, number 1, Micah Parsons, pin yours back, come after the quarterback 1,000 miles an hour like you always do. Well, that's gone now. That X factor of your defense, you're a very good defense and outstanding defense. Up there with the Houstons and the Denvers. Now you don't have that anymore. So this is devastating for Green Bay. Absolutely. I don't see a scenario in which they win the NFC at this point. I don't see it. At this point, I think Chicago's going to win the North. I really do. I'm like, Detroit's still technically alive, but if you look at the Bears today, man, we'll talk about them later, but Caleb just looks better by the week. It was 12 degrees in Chicago. Couldn't tell by their offense. O-line's great. Defense has been playing well. Green Bay's going to be in. And the way the playoff, where would they be at in the postseason today? Green Bay would have to go on the road to, Chicago. Okay, there you go. So you would get a Bears-Packers, playoff game. I would probably pick the Bears. I'm not going to lie. The momentum is on their side. The way they played recently. Infrastructure, health is on the Chicago Bears side, even with the injuries to guys like Jalen Johnson. So that's devastating for Green Bay. Like, if your season's going to end, you want it to be in the postseason because you ran into a team that maybe you didn't match up against, and not because of an injury to your best player. And we usually see 1 or 2 teams a year where that happens, and the Packers are the very unfortunate victims this year. So it absolutely sucks. Wishing nothing but the best to Micah Parsons. And again, as for Denver, man, that was could you win a game in which the defense wasn't amazing? They were great in the second half. Surtain made the play. Could you win a game in which the defense was amazing? Could Bo Nix be great for the whole game? And he was. Bo Nix talked about the fact that the Broncos, they were underdogs at home to Green Bay coming in this game. And Bo Nix had a little turn of phrase afterwards with Tracy Wolfson.
You guys came in winners of 10 straight, now 11, but you were the underdogs. What did this team show against a really difficult Packers team?
That we're the overdogs.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Denver felt extremely disrespected. Like, wait a minute, time out. We got the best record in football. We've got an insane home field advantage. Our defensive line is outstanding. Bo's been great in the fourth quarter. We got Sean Payton, and we're almost a field goal dog at home to Green Bay. Like, Green Bay's good, but come on now. What are we doing? They proved that wrong. So I'll tell you what, I'm really excited for that game next week when they play Jacksonville. That is, we'll talk about Trevor, my guy, Trevor freaking Lawrence later in the show. That's gonna be a big test for the Jags, but that's like 4:05 Eastern game on Fox. It's kind of gonna be buried because next week you got the Lions and the Steelers, and whew, that's a good one. That's one you're not gonna want to miss. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, listen. Josh Allen, the Bills, there's pressure on them, but more so, they expose a potential fatal flaw for the New England Patriots. Talk about that after this 1-minute break on Carvamp Live. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Appreciate everybody stopping by on a Monday. Later in the show, you'll want to stay tuned because I wanted to kind of because I didn't get a chance to do it on Friday because some technical difficulties, which means no laptop charger, at least in the case of Friday. But wanted to give sort of a recap, breakdown, so to speak, of my trip to New York last week because it was an absolute blast. Got to see some just good friends of mine. Shout out to Barry Grant Jr., Alfred Parsons Jr., both here at the Grid, both dear friends of mine. Got to finally meet them in person. I'm spoiling. I'll just stay tuned for later because I got a chance to be in New York City to meet them, but also to be a part of a show called Clash on House of Highlights. So I will sort of I'll tell as much as I'm allowed to tell. Let's put it that way before, of course, the episode is eventually released. But let's talk about the Buffalo Bills because they beat the New England Patriots yesterday. Came back to do so, 21-0 in the first half. It looks, the Patriots are running away with this thing. When TreVeyon Henderson takes that to the house, and he is like the best home run hitter. He is like, Cal Raleigh for crying. He's Aaron Judge. With all these 50-yard runs for touchdowns, it feels like he breaks every other week. But when he breaks the long run, it's 21-zip, and it's like, oh, this game's over. Like, it's a wrap. And Buffalo comes back and wins the game. Josh Allen is nothing short sensational. We can show you, I believe we have, Josh Allen's numbers over the course of this game. He was sensational. 3 pass touchdowns, no picks, completed 67. Let's call it 68% of his throws because of the 0.9 there. 241 total yards, 123 rating, QBR 0 to 100 of 78. You see right there, he has 24 touchdowns, 4 picks in the second half of games this season. So Josh plays his best ball when he absolutely needed to the second half of games. He's been nothing short of sensational. Like if the NFL had a clutch player of the year like the NBA introduced a few years ago, which I'm glad they didn't. I hope the NFL does the same. It'll almost certainly go to a quarterback, but it would be a contest between Allen, Bo Nix, and Caleb Williams. They've all three been insanely clutch this year. On the Buffalo side of this, and we'll get to New England, man, if my Steelers end up winning the AFC North, the Ravens look good. The Ravens defense in particular looked great yesterday against Cincinnati. If the Ravens don't run down my Steelers for the division, and the playoff format goes as follows, as the division champions: Denver, New England, or Buffalo, but we know both will be in. Jacksonville, and Pittsburgh. If that's your division champions, and even beyond that, Chargers, Houston, New England, you better win the AFC. And that's not to denigrate any of those teams. Now, y'all heard me wax poetic about Denver. That defensive line and offensive line the Broncos bring to the table. Bo Nix's clutch ability. The Patriots, they've shown you what they've been all season. One of the best top-to-bottom complete teams in the NFL. They can run the football. They're, can stop the run. Drake Maye's had an outstanding year. My guy, Trevor Lawrence. I almost lost belief. I almost lost faith, but I didn't give up yet, and it's been rewarded. Trevor Lawrence has been absolutely outstanding. We'll talk about him later. Jacksonville's a real team, but they don't have the pedigree in the postseason. At least the respect that we've given to the Buffalo Bills. We don't give that to Jacksonville, nor should we. Justin Herbert's never won a playoff game. C.J. Stroud never been past the second round of the postseason. Allen's been there twice to the AFC title game. The excuse for years for Buffalo Bills fans is, man, Josh has been great in the playoffs, which he has been. His postseason numbers are excellent. They haven't lost because of Josh, per se. He hasn't been great in clutch situations, but, of the breadth of postseasons, Josh has been great. But the excuse has always been, we just ran into Mahomes. We just ran the dynasty in Kansas City. We ran into the better coach, Andy Reid. Bills fans feel comparable quarterback, maybe lesser Mahomes to Josh Allen. Their defense was better than our defense. Okay, that's off the table now. Even Lamar Jackson, who gave you a run for your money last year in the divisional round, if he's out of the playoffs, and it's not like Lamar's a great postseason performer, neither is Justin Herbert. The Texans' offense looked good yesterday, but come on, it's Arizona. We don't trust the Texans' offense necessarily in the postseason. You better go to the Super Bowl. If you lose to the LA Rams, no one's going to knock you. The Rams, to me, spoiler alert for Bryson's best 10 on Wednesday, Rams are the best team in football. And they have maybe arguably the best quarterback in football, Matthew Stafford. If you lose to them, you lose to them. Like they're just better than you. But you better get to Super Bowl 60 in San Francisco if you're the Buffalo Bills and you have a healthy Josh Allen. Because if the reason you haven't gotten there, 15 in Kansas City is standing our way, Andy Reid, that's gone now. And you say, well, what about the weapons? Understood. You got an old Brandon Cooks, Khalil Shakir, who's a nice player, but not special. Although, pretty good tight ends. Dawson Knox had a big day yesterday. You got, Kincaid, hopefully. James Cook's an excellent running back, one of the 5 best in the league. You got a great offensive line. Defense isn't spectacular, but hey, how the Patriots defense look yesterday? Like every dog has their day. Sometimes you do have to outscore teams in the postseason. Mahomes had to do it multiple times. Brady had to do it multiple times. All of the greats. If we expect that from Josh Allen, if Josh can, and y'all know how I feel about Josh Allen. I think he's one of the 3 greatest talents to ever play the position. Certainly one of the 5 best. But if he can have a stretch of kind of quiet football and then bam, great game last week against Cincinnati, great second half this week against the Patriots, and all of a sudden he might beat Stafford for MVP. I'm going to talk about Matt Stafford in about 10 minutes. I think Stafford's the runaway MVP this season. If we're going to give you that benefit of doubt, you better cash in the postseason. Well, the receivers aren't great deep. No team's perfect. Like, if we are going to expect you to carry a certain caliber of a team, when you have a good offensive line, when you've got James Cook, when you've got not one great tight end, 2 excellent tight ends. Y'all know I'm not a big Sean McDermott believer, but got into 2 AFC title games. Keep running the Chiefs. A legitimate excuse. The 13-second game, losing by a field goal back-to-back years in the postseason, legitimate excuse. That's gone now. The AFC is either guys who don't have, extended postseason success, an old, beat-up Aaron Rodgers with the Steelers team. Love my Steelers, but we haven't won a playoff game since the Obama administration. It's been almost a decade. Or guys with minimal to no postseason experience. Bo Nix, Drake Maye, guys with, little postseason experience like a Trevor Lawrence, a Justin Herbert, a C.J. Stroud. You darn well better go to the Super Bowl. All the pressure's on you now. And so Josh Allen talked about the Bills' kind of resilient comeback, vibe about them this season. He talked about after the game, after the win against the Patriots. Then we'll talk about New England.
I think it's maybe over the course of the season what we've done, and you saw it today, of what makes this team of, we're not out of it. We're going to continue to fight one play at a time, no matter what the score is. If it's in the third quarter, it's in the fourth quarter, whatever it is. If we've got a chance and we got the ball, we feel like we like our chances, and that's that.
And that's been the MO of the Bills this season. When you talk about their week 1 win against Baltimore, last week against Cincinnati, when the defense did make some plays on Joe Burrow, this week down 21-0 to New England. And then let's play Mike Vrabel's bite about Josh Allen, then we'll talk about the Patriots, because Buffalo might have exposed a really concerning trend that has been plaguing New England as of late. But Mike Vrabel talking about the greatness of Josh Allen.
I mean, it's the same thing everybody else sees. He's 6'5", 250 pounds, runs fast, hard to tackle, hard to get down on the ground. It's accurate, strong arm. Like, I'm giving you, dissertation on a league MVP. It's like, just watch all the games and know that it's just the same as it was last week. You had a guy free, weren't able to make the play. Last week's team had a guy free, weren't able to make the play. Like, that's why they draft him, and that's why they pay him $60 million. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
When one of the best coaches in the NFL and a guy who feels like is going to win Coach of the Year is just kind of at a loss of words, that's when you're a spectacular player. So by no means did yesterday, because I'm seeing some people kind of sell stock completely. The Patriots still should win the AFCs. They still should be the number 2 seed in the conference of the Denver Broncos. And if they are, we'll talk about home field advantage, weather in New England, crowds raucous. They haven't seen a home playoff game since Brady's final game as a Patriot back in early 2020 during the 2019 season. Like that place is going to be rocking. It's been what has been 6 years, I think, since they've had a home playoff game. They're going to be out of their minds excited. And Drake May's still great. He had, people look at the past like, no touchdowns, 1 pick. He ran 2 in. Like, Drake Maye was fine. He wasn't special, but he was fine yesterday. But something that has, and maybe yesterday's a wake-up call. And with a coach like Mike Vrabel, who is I've always said, like, he's all the best parts of Belichick without all the bad parts. Like, the best parts in that, hey, disciplinarian, details, manipulating the rules in your favor. And he's without the worst parts, whereas Belichick didn't really have much relationship at all with his players, which you've got to have. The players got to know you have your back. Mike Vrabel, the Patriots know he's got their back. And he's got that sort of old school and new school vibe about him, which is why he's been one of the most successful coaches in football. So this might be tailor-made for a guy like Mike Vrabel, where, hey, the team's won 10 straight, maybe a little bit of complacency. You're up 21-0. You let your foot off the gas, and that's always dangerous to do against a guy of Josh Allen's caliber. However, it's week 5. We've got 3 weeks left of the regular season, then it's playoff time, baby. The Patriots have been, and we'll show you the numbers, the single best team in the NFL when it comes to first half scoring. Second half scoring, they've been one of the worst this season. We can show you. Do we have the numbers for New England? Here you go. First half, number 1 in the NFL in points per game in the first half, 16. Second half, they averaged 10.6 points per game. That is 22nd in the NFL. If you want to know the teams below them, they're not very good with the exception of one. Only team that score fewer second half points than the Patriots this season. The Commanders, Cardinals, Giants, Eagles, and we know their offensive struggles. Dolphins, Falcons, Titans, Saints, Raiders, Browns. Is that hey, we're blowing teams out week after week? Like, the Giants and Miami, they can't compete with us. We'll be fine. Or is it a level of, again, complacency? We've won 10 in a row. Patriots are back. We're sort of inheriting the good vibes, the energy from those great Patriot dynasty teams with Brady and Belichick, and our fans are expecting us to do the same. And so we've got this. Winning culture's back in New England. Vrabel's part of some of those championship teams. Vrabel's a great coach. Drake Maye might win MVP. We're going to get the 1 seed if Denver just slips up one time. Our schedule's easy, and then you get humbled a little bit like yesterday. Now, the Patriots, to their credit, didn't just roll over and die. It wasn't like the Buffalo scored 35 unanswered, right? Drake Maye ends up leading the block to least of a Trayvon Henderson, long run for a touchdown. I don't know, Patriots fans are going to whine, the refs, the pass interference calls. Here's the thing, man. You will not find it's multi-layered, and I've talked about this for years on Carving It Up. Number 1, you will not find a single one of the 32 teams this season that haven't gotten screwed by some bad officiating calls one way or the other. B, some of those were kind of ticky-tack or at least close, debatable. Hey, you can see why they called that. Depending on if you're rooting for or against the Patriots, you feel a certain type of way about it. And C, bro, you're up 21-0. Like that's, the Buffalo spotted you 3 touchdowns at home in a game where you can clinch the AFCs. Yeah, like it's a wrap. You win this game, you are guaranteed at least one home playoff game. Now, you still should get that. You still should win the AFC East and get the number 2 seed in the conference to the Denver Broncos, assuming Denver doesn't, slip up the rest of the season. But now it's a question. Now it's, we lose one more time. Here comes Buffalo. Josh Allen's got it, on a roll. We know how great he's been in the postseason in years past. You would really, it would be, I think, as for any second place team that doesn't win the division, you think about Seattle, you think about Green Bay, I guess technically Buffalo. A team like New England, if they end up falling to the point where they're having to play road playoff games the whole way, it would be utterly devastating. Devastating. By the way, next week, and I'm not sure I necessarily agree with this because of the fact that I trust Vrabel when his teams are facing adversity, but they're 2.5-point dogs at Baltimore. And have you seen Baltimore's offense? Looked okay yesterday, but the defense carried the day for the Ravens against Cincinnati. They lose that game, maybe we're viewing the Patriots a little different. Like, hey, once you go up in weight class, once you're playing the elite quarterbacks, it doesn't look like the same squad. And I know they beat Buffalo early this season, to their credit. Some of that was Buffalo 3 turnovers. Josh Allen didn't play very well. So when you're playing Josh Allen at his best, then what? You're up 3 touchdowns at home with a chance to wrap up the division. Then what? Show that number one more time. And they showed a similar graphic on CBS, something like, first half, second half point differential. We're just doing points per game or points per half, I guess. 16 points, 60.7 points, per first half. That's best in the NFL. 10.6 points per half. That is 22nd in the NFL. And with the exception of Philly, every team below them is terrible. A bit of a front runner type tendency. We'll see if they prove people wrong next week against the Baltimore Ravens. Because with Baltimore's offensive struggles, that defense is playing well. That's on the road. Bad weather. Not the Patriots aren't used to that. In Baltimore, Sunday Night Football, whole country's watching. Vrabel's the type of coach I think will have his guys ready to go in that situation. But beyond that, if that does not occur, I think we see this Patriots team a little bit differently. Like, hey, had a great year, double-digit wins. Still might end up winning the division, but we don't trust them as much as Buffalo. We don't think they have the roster to the level of a Denver. They don't have the playoff experience, albeit minimal, of a CJ Stroud, of a Trevor Lawrence out of the AFC South. So that's where I'm at in New England. Got some comments here. Ryan Flowers from Clutch Sports Talking NFL Matchups. He says, fine, ain't going to cut it. Got to be special to win a Super Bowl. We will see. The season is week to week. I think those numbers could be misleading because they might be taking their foot off the gas. Well, that's talking about the Patriots, second half point differential or points per game. I honestly, Ryan, when I did the research, I was like, because I remember, again, the CBS showed the stat of point differential, wasn't able to lock down the point differential. So I was like, okay, points per half. And there might be some great teams that just blow out, like what the Eagles did against the Raiders. Like they smoke them and then just kind of take their foot off the gas. But when I saw, again, the teams below them in points per game in the second half, Commanders, Cardinals, Giants, Eagles, Dolphins, Falcons, Titans, Saints, Raiders, Browns, like teams that are in the running, some teams that are in the running for the number 1 overall pick, teams that need a quarterback. It's like, that's a bit of a knock. And he says, if Drake May wins the MVP, it's like Mendoza winning the Heisman. Somebody has to win it. Listen, Drake's going to finish top 3. I'm not sure if Josh Allen's going to leap him. You'll see where I've got Bryson's MVP ladder on Wednesday's show. I got to be honest with y'all. This actually is a perfect segue in my next segment. Matt Stafford's MVP, and it's not even remotely close. Respect to Drake May. Respect to Josh Allen. Heck, respect to Myles Garrett, who's almost certainly against Josh Allen, going to break the sack record next week. Doing so on a Browns team that's terrible and is trailing games makes it even more impressive. It's not like it's a guy, like if Micah Parsons, knock on wood for him, if he broke the sack record, it would be amazing. But the Packers are leading a lot of these games. The Browns aren't. So it makes Myles Garrett's accomplishment that he's about to pull off all the more impressive. But with that all being said, it's Stafford by a country mile. Show Matt Stafford's numbers. I mean, he's first or second in every major statistical category. First in pass touchdowns, second pass yards per game. Now, only 13th in completion, but 66% still pretty darn good. First in passer rating, fourth in QBR, and he's the NFC's number 1 seed as we sit here today in an NFC that is miles better than the AFC today. You got the Rams, Seattle, the Niners, and that's just in the NFC West. He's leading the toughest division in football. By the way, he's been doing it with Injuries to Puka Nacua this season. Now Devontae Adams, unfortunately for him, old man injury, not going to win for Devontae. Hamstring, he's probably gone for the rest of the regular season. I think he should be. The Rams should sit him for the postseason, have their best number 2 receiver ready to go. But this was a year where Stafford comes in. There's the back problems. He doesn't play for most of camp. I've said it. I sound like a broken record. I've said it for 3 months on the show. If you told me that Matt Stafford had a back injury and I was not aware of that, I would not have believed you. The way he's playing, the way that he's moving, he is one of the last kind of pocket-only guys, albeit he can move. He can still make the sidearm deliveries with the best of them, the no-look passes that has kind of been, Mahomes has done it as of late, but Stafford's kind of the guy who patented that in the modern NFL passing era. Accuracy's off the charts, decision-making. He threw the pick early to Aiden Hutchinson, who I thought was going to house it for a second. Detroit ended up scoring the next play. We'll talk about Detroit in a few minutes, but Stafford was, beyond that, outstanding. And I think when you talk about a guy who has the resume that he has, where he's kind of in that Phillip Rivers, we'll talk about Phillip later, like, is he a Hall of Fame? Like the numbers say it. Now, unlike Phillip Rivers, he's got a Super Bowl, but he didn't win Super Bowl MVP. That was Cooper Kupp. I thought it should have been Aaron Donald. So 2 guys for the Rams that were in that game probably more valuable than Stafford was. But he's been successful in the postseason with the Rams. Won that Super Bowl in 21. If the Rams had been better in the red zone, would have beaten Detroit in 23. Hammered the 14-win Vikings in the first round last year. And then in the snow, Jalen Carter doesn't make a play. The Rams win that game in Philadelphia after they were down, double digits with 4 minutes to go on the road on a short week after the devastating LA Fires. Like this is elite quarterback stuff. This is Hall of Fame level stuff. And for as great as Drake Maye has been, did you know this? Drake Maye has 14 fewer touchdown passes than Matt Stafford. 14. It's not 7, 8. 14. Josh Allen's been amazing, but it's kind of been a little bit of a roller coaster. Stafford had a bad game a few weeks ago against Carolina. That's basically it. He's good against Seattle. Torched the Lions. Like, he's been great by and large against all the contenders in the NFC. And so if we're talking about the word valuable, you can make a case for Josh and Drake, no question, certainly for a guy like Myles Garrett. But then again, there's an award for Myles Garrett. It's called Defensive Player of the Year, which he's probably going to win unanimously. But I don't see the team's winning. The team is the best in the tougher conference. The team is the best in the far and away the toughest division in football, the NFC West, where San Francisco's won 10 games. San Francisco still controls their fate, I think, as the 1 seed, and they're in 3rd place in the West. Then you add the likes of the Chicago Bears, Green Bay Packers. Detroit's out of it, but if Detroit gets in, no one wants to play them. Philadelphia, defending champions. Like, the NFC's loaded. And you're the top seed in the conference. Huge game on Thursday against Seattle. But as of today, you're number 1. That's impressive stuff. And your numbers are what they are. Most touchdowns by a pretty comfortable margin. 2nd pass yards per game to Dak. Like, it's you could say Puka Nacua, you can say all of these guys, but ultimately the quarterback's got to get the job done when it's all, when it's all said and done. Like, the accuracy's been there, the clutch factor's been there. They're smoking some of the best teams. Against the Niners a few weeks ago, destroyed San Francisco. The score wouldn't indicate it, but Stafford was outstanding against a Robert Saleh coach defense. And it's hard right now to make an argument for anybody other than the Rams as the favorite out of the NFC. Like, you give Philly respect, but Philly, and we didn't get a chance to talk about it, but I have a rule on this show, and the Chiefs broke it a few weeks ago. Tampa Bay's already broken it. And the Eagles, we're talking about teams that are legit contenders. If you lose 3 consecutive games, I do not consider you a contender. I can't. If you lose once, it's the NFL. Can't win all of them. Not going to be the 72 Dolphins. If you lose another one, okay, we're in a little bit of a slump. We need to get this next one. And you lose again? Jalen Hurts has 5 turnovers. You lose again? And I love Jalen Hurts, but you lose again? With their offensive struggles yesterday, notwithstanding, against a terrible Vegas team, I can't trust you. The Rams are a great offensive team, great defensive team. I maintain, and I'm sure we'll have Pierce DeLuna on the show. Shout out to him, for the host of the First and Tuna podcast. Great dude, great podcaster. Worked for SI. Like, had him on the show. Hopefully we'll have him on during the playoffs. I suggested to him, I suggest on the show, is it totally off the board that Aaron Donald pulls an Eric Weddle? Eric Weddle, remember, he joined the Rams right before the playoffs. Pretty good for that team. Won a Super Bowl. Went back into retirement. Who's saying Aaron Donald won't do the same thing when he's got those two edge rushers in Jared Verse and Byron Young? Don't discount that. I mean, have you seen that? I know football shape's different, but have you seen those workout videos? I feel like Aaron Donald's going to be the next generation's James Harrison of former defensive linemen who are just absolute freaks in the weight room. I'm not discounting that. Sean McVay's arguably the best coach in football. This Rams team's outstanding. For Detroit, I saw a stat. We weren't able to make it a graphic in time, but it's still worth mentioning on the show. Dan Campbell hasn't gotten the requisite credit just because the Lions haven't won that many games, at least relative to the last couple of seasons. They're 8-6 right now. But since Dan Campbell took over play calling duties, Detroit Lions, first in yards per play, third in points, fourth in touchdowns, they're 24th in punts, and dead last in turnovers in a good way. They don't turn the football over. So Dan Campbell, full-time OC for Detroit, maybe. The problem is the same thing that has plagued the Lions for this entire kind of little run that they've had. They cannot get a stop. Even when Aiden Hutchinson makes a play on Matt Stafford on the tight end screen, jumps the pass. I was joking with some people yesterday, Aiden Hutchinson's got better hands than a lot of DBs in this league. Just the quick presence of mind, bam, grab that, take it, I think 58 yards. Lions end up scoring in the next play. St. Brown was unguardable yesterday against the Rams. And it didn't matter. Goff was great. Didn't matter. Lions O-line protected well. The passing game was as good as it's been all season. Didn't matter. Couldn't get a stop. Without CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens pouting, we'll talk about Dallas in a few minutes, they couldn't stop Dallas. Some of that's Dak's great. Some of that is Ryan Flores being us up the top. What's happening? Can't get a stop. If you're the Detroit Lions, I'm not kidding. Next year in the draft, it is, unless you want to take maybe a receiver or somebody in the 6th round, it is all defense. If nothing else, just for depth. Because that's something else for Detroit, and it plagued them last year. Remember they lost 10 to 12 guys or something due to injury, guys in the back end of their defense, which has been plagued by injury this year. Aiden Hutchinson went down last year. He's been good this year. They just can't stay healthy. So if nothing else, I kept joking last year with the Lions, and they were my NFC title pick, in 2024. The old saying of, next man up, next man. Eventually you run out of guys to bring up. That was the reality for Detroit last year to a degree. Same story in 2025. Can't get stops. If you look at Detroit this year, by and large, their losses have come when they just can't get stops. Again, if we can pull this up, the Philadelphia loss, they scored 9 points in that game. That's on the offense. But if you look at Detroit's losses this year, okay? 27 given up to Green Bay. Again, this is in their losses. Against the Chiefs, gave up 30. Against the Vikings, J.J. McCarthy's looked better as of late, but at home, 27. Against Philly, 16. That's on the offense. Green Bay, 31 at home on Thanksgiving Day. And then yesterday, 41 against the LA Rams. By the way, he gave up 30 last week to Dallas. At home. With a week to prepare. So, I don't know if it's a coaching issue. I really don't think it is. I think it's a personnel issue. I think it's a lack of depth issue. I think it's we've invested a lot in our offense in the draft the last few years. The Jahmyr Gibbs pick, the offensive line. Obviously, Goff has been really productive in Detroit. Ben Johnson was a wizard calling plays. Now Dan Campbell, you heard the numbers, has been great. Has brought a more balanced style of offense. That's why I said when Dan Campbell called the plays, he didn't call plays because Morton was doing a bad job. He called plays because we're bite kneecaps, right? We're a team that wants to hit you in the mouth. We're a team that wants to establish the line of scrimmage, run the football with Gibbs and Montgomery, and they've done that better. They just can't get a stop. Now, if you're Detroit moving forward, they don't control their own destiny, but they just need Chicago or Green Bay to kind of slip up a little bit. If the Packers go 1-2 the rest of the way and Detroit wins out, Detroit gets in. But Detroit the rest of the way. Home game against Pittsburgh. That line just keeps going up in Detroit's favor. As a Steelers fan, I am truly dreading that game. Short week at Detroit. The Lions are desperate. That could be a long day for me as a Steelers fan. At Minnesota on Christmas on a short week. Vikings have looked better as of late. J.J. McCarthy in particular, so you never know. And then at the Chicago Bears in a game that could be an elimination game, oddly, for both teams, even though the Bears are second in the NFC, depending on where both teams are at in a few weeks. It's all out in front of them, but the schedule's not exactly easy. The Pittsburgh, still Pittsburgh. The Vikings, divisional opponent, there's familiarity. They've already beaten you in your house. Now you got to go to theirs on Christmas. Fans will be, excited. Minnesota's got a legit home field advantage. And then at Chicago, that's a tough road ahead for Detroit. It really, really is. So pulling for Dan Campbell, pulling for the Lions to, do something special. But that's a hard road ahead. And as for the former Lions quarterback, Matt Stafford, spent the first 12 years of his career there. He's respect to Josh, respect to Drake May, Myles Garrett. I don't even think it's a contest. I'm not saying like unanimous MVP stuff, but when the voting comes out, assuming the season continues to progress the way that it has to this point through the first 15 weeks, if the voting around the Super Bowl, which is when they officially announce MVP, when the voting gets released, it should be like all but 4 or 5 first place votes for M. Stafford. Like that's what we should see. So he's been flawless. He had the bad game against Carolina where he had the picks. That's it. The Rams are scary, man. And that came Thursday night. That's as good of a late season Thursday night game as we've seen ever. I mean, Rams Seahawks 11-3 versus 11-3 for the NFC West lead. Oh my gosh. It's unbelievable. Let's talk about gift that keeps on giving, folks. Let's talk about the Dallas Cowboys.
How about them Cowboys? Yeah!
So they're done. They are really done. So I declared them dead last week after they lost to Detroit. They kind of had to win out to have a realistic shot. They lose to the Lions, but then Philly loses to the Chargers. Like, there's a chance if the Philly goes 2-2 the rest of the way, Dallas wins out. Dallas' schedule to a degree kind of favorable, and that's that did not happen. They lost last night to the Minnesota Vikings 34-26. JJ McCarthy was quite good. It's back-to-back weeks, by the way, that McCarthy's played well. I, to say the very least, was not a JJ McCarthy believer. I thought at Michigan he was the very definition of a system quarterback. Liked his arm, but didn't like his accuracy. His deep ball wasn't great. That was very much a Blake Corum. Did you see Blake Corum yesterday at the Rams? Holy cow. It was a Blake Corum offensive line, defense reliant, a football team with Jim Harbaugh. JJ McCarthy was at best like the 7th most valuable player on that team. I mean, he was. Blake Corum, the defensive line, O-line. Tight ends, by the way, Colson Loveland. But yesterday against the Dallas Cowboys, and talking, because again, McCarthy played well as far as Dallas is concerned. I have 4 words for Dallas Cowboys fans on 2 things. One, I think most Cowboys fans kind of saw coming, most honest ones anyway. And the second one, it's like not even, I thought it wasn't even debatable. Cowboys fans argue with me all season. 4 words are, I told you so. On 2 things. One of which, some Cowboys fans are like, no, you didn't tell me so because I expected it. The Cowboys defense is nothing short of atrocious. I saw a stat earlier today, which is kind of unbelievable. If I can pull this up on my phone. Again, we weren't able to make it a graphic in time, but it is insane. The Cowboys defense this year against opposing quarterbacks. Do we have the numbers? Here it is. Here are the numbers of opposing quarterbacks facing the Dallas Cowboys this season per game. 270 yards, 2 touchdowns, average about half an interception, 68% completion. Those are comparable to the numbers of Aaron Rodgers in his 2020 MVP campaign. Like, yards identical, touchdowns, Aaron slightly higher, picks identical, 0.4 to 0.3, identical. And completion percentage, 68 is what Dallas gives up. Aaron had a 70% completion in his 2020 MVP campaign. So essentially, quarterbacks facing the Dallas Cowboys this year are 2020 Aaron Rodgers. That ain't great. It's almost as if trading one of the 5 best defensive players on the face of the earth, God bless him, knee injury, knock on wood, hopefully Micah comes back and is better than ever next year. He's had the best year of his career this year prior to the injury. It's almost as if trading that guy was going to make it worse on defense. I mean, EPA, which isn't a stat we do much on the show, but the Cowboys with Micah, I think were like a top 5 defense last year, and without him when he was hurt, they were the worst defense in football. Almost as if missing that guy would make you a lot worse. If you took Myles Garrett off the Browns, don't think they'd be very good. I mean, the Steelers without TJ Watt, unfortunately, we're going to be without TJ tonight. Steelers without TJ Watt, 1-10. Defensive players still hold immense value. elite pass rushers in particular, hold immense value. But some Cowboys fans were like, yeah, I knew we were going to be worse on defense without Micah Parsons, just whether we can hit all these draft picks. Well, based on Jerry's recent history, I don't have much hope there, but we'll see. Maybe he can redeem himself. But the thing that majority of Cowboys fans argued with me all season long, and I remain steadfast, didn't move an inch on this. Bryson, you're too hard on George Pickens. He didn't work in Pittsburgh because the quarterback play was bad. It is Kenny Pickett and Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, Mason Rudolph. Like, what are you going to do with that? Fair point. Although Justin Jefferson's been dealing with mediocre quarterback play for years. He's the best receiver in football, but that's neither here nor there. He's on his best behavior this year. He's playing well. There was a point in time. Receiving yards, it went Jackson Smith and Jigba, George Pickens. George Pickens was ahead of CeeDee Lamb, wasn't leading the Cowboys, partly because he was hurt, but wasn't leading the Cowboys in receiving yards. It was George Pickens. I said, just wait. It doesn't matter if he's got an elite receiver opposite him. That will draw some attention away from the way that Calvin Austin and others didn't in Pittsburgh. It doesn't matter if Dak Prescott is 5 Grand Canyons better than whoever the best quarterback in Pittsburgh was. It doesn't matter that he goes from a defense-first culture to an offense-first culture. It doesn't matter if he goes from cold weather to a dome. He's the same guy. He's the same guy that I saw his second year at Georgia, second or third year at Georgia, 2020. Squirt water and Jarrett Garantano, quarterback for Tennessee. Garantano gets tackled out of bounds. George Pickens squirts water at him on the sideline. And that's the least of his issues. Who gets into multiple fights a game. This year's not fights, it's just outright pouting. George Pickens, let's show his numbers. The first 11 games versus the last 3. First 11 games, oh man, couldn't be stopped. 95 receiving yards a game, 8 touchdowns. This last 3 game stretches, 52 receiving yards and 0 touchdowns. And for the second consecutive week, and Collinsworth, who knows as much football as anybody, was on the money. He was talking about, Tim and Tirico were saying how, Richard Sherman, after the game against Detroit, said George Pickens quit, and then he responded to Richard Sherman. And Collinsworth, I think this was third or fourth quarter when he mentioned this. He said, effort was a question for George Pickens. I watched the film, and I'm watching right now. It looks exactly the same. He's out of it mentally. He's not getting the targets early, so now he's going to pout. It's a do-or-die game for the Cowboys. Must win at home against a team whose season is over. Vikings had already been eliminated from playoff contention. When you need him the most, he checks out. If there's something, if he's got a bug up his you-know-what about whatever it is, he taps out. So he's always been his whole career. Back to Georgia, in Pittsburgh. Again, Jerry Dulac on the Rich Eisen show, and I wish we had the soundbite, said it best. Rich Eisen, shout out to the great Rich Eisen. Great man and outstanding broadcaster. Rich Eisen asked Jerry Dulac a few weeks ago when he came on the show. Jerry Dulac covers the Steelers. Rich Eisen asked, is Pittsburgh surprised? Or is Pittsburgh kind of like, oh man, didn't see that coming with what George Pickens is doing in Dallas? And Jerry Dulac said, no, they're not surprised at all. They know Dak's better than any quarterback they've had in Pittsburgh. They didn't trade George Pickens because he wasn't good. They didn't trade him because he was unproductive. They traded him because he's an atrocious teammate. They traded him because his effort fluctuates based on the circumstances. And they traded him because he was in a contract year, and no way on planet Earth were they going to give him an extension and entrust him to be one of the cornerstones of their franchise. I have knocked the Steelers for a lot of their decisions offensively, for not valuing the quarterback position, from not valuing an offensive line, to not getting a creative play caller. But I defended Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan in that Steelers front office the day that they traded him. So if you're a Cowboys fan and your 2 most important free agents this offseason are George Pickens and Brandon Aubrey. Now, Brandon Aubrey didn't have a very good game yesterday, but hey, he's allowed to be human for once, right? Who you signing if given the choice between the two? Because you're already paying Dak big money. You're already paying CeeDee Lamb big money. You going to do what the Cincinnati Bengals did? And by the way, T. Higgins is a lot more reliable than George Pickens. A lot more productive consistently. Effort is always there. Like it is with most elite receivers. I said this over and over. Defensive coordinators, when game planning against Pittsburgh, or even when they're on the sideline watching in real time, they could tell when George Pickens wasn't getting the football literally based on his body language. They could look at it, oh yeah, 14's not getting it. Okay, so you don't have to worry about him. Or if he is getting it, it's going to be like a 3rd and 15, a 6-yard, curl route, and it's not going to go anywhere. We're going to have him wrapped up, and we're going to force a punt. George Pickens is the guy whose attitude, we know this person at work, in our personal lives, where, man, when they're at their best, it's like, oh my gosh, they're just the best at what they do. But when stuff ain't going exactly how they planned it, not the same. Effort isn't there. That's the one thing. You can't always control your circumstances. You can't control how you deal with them. That's what separates the talented people from the great people in any industry, football included. CeeDee Lamb doesn't always get the ball. Sometimes when George Pickens getting the ball, CeeDee Lamb's left in the back burner. Remember that game against Philadelphia? The second game against Philly when Dallas made the comeback? George Pickens making these acrobatic catches, and CeeDee Lamb can't catch cold. And CeeDee Lamb comes out the very next week, balls out against the Chiefs, balled out against Detroit before the concussion, and not played pretty well last night against Minnesota. Because CeeDee Lamb's a professional. CeeDee Lamb knows, hey, there's a lot invested in me financially and in terms of, hey, Dak needs to know. I'm there. 88, I've got your back. They even mentioned on the broadcast last night, Collinsworth and Tirico, that Dak outright told them, yeah, there came a point in I'm not quoting Dak exactly, but there came a point in time I didn't really trust him that much. Like, I saw his head was not where it needed to be. And I pointed out the next day on the show, I'm like, he trusts Jake Ferguson, who'd fumbled in that game. He trusted Ryan Flournoy, Kevontae Turpin. Guys don't have half the talent of Pickens. So if you're Dallas, if you're Jerry Jones, be very, very careful. If you want a franchise tag, I'm okay. I'm not a fan of the franchise tag, but you could defend it. You better not give him a long-term extension. What do we know about money? Money is just like alcohol. It is truth serum. It just makes you more of what you already are. Or exacerbates who you are. You think George Pickens is going to be less of a distraction? Is he going to give more effort when he's not getting targets? Again, a situation tailor-made for a guy in a contract year. Elite quarterback, elite receiver opposite you. Offense first culture as opposed to Pittsburgh. You play in a dome instead of in freezing, frigid Pittsburgh. Same thing. Oh, he'll make a few athletic, acrobatic catches. Make no mistake about it. But when you really need him, he's going to be selfish. And you saw that last night. We're going to take a break. But when we come back, Week 15 recap around the National Football League, as well as a recap of my trip to New York City. Talk about all those things in just 1 minute on Carve Amp Live. Don't go anywhere. Matt's Carving Up Live. I mean, it was just a weird weekend around the NFL in the sense of you had some you had a lot of young quarterbacks absolutely just show up in a major way who had kind of some ups and downs. You have Bo Nix, Caleb Williams, Trevor Lawrence. I'll talk about those last two guys in a few minutes, but let's do a Week 15 recap around the NFL. Again, we didn't do a show Friday, so I didn't get a chance to really dive in on Falcons and Buccaneers. Atlanta won that one 29-28. Listen, I was out in Tampa. My rule, you lose 3 straight games, I don't consider you a Super Bowl contender. So I was already out in Tampa, and excuse me, I've been a big Baker fan the last few years since, he started as a Buccaneer. I'm going to defend Baker in the sense that I do not think he is healthy. Remember, he injured that shoulder against the Rams. It has not looked quite the same since. But that is as inexcusable a loss as you'll have all season. And the Bucs got some life thanks to the fact that Carolina lost yesterday to the Saints. But you yourself lost to the Saints at home, short week against a Falcons team that ain't got jack squat to play for. A team that would be, their fan base would almost prefer them lose so they can get as high a pick as possible. And not only are you up 14 in the fourth quarter, not only that, you find yourself in a situation where, wait a second, last drive of the game, you've got a 3rd and 28. I think it was 3rd and 28 and 4th and 14. And you give up a first down and Atlanta ends up winning on a field goal. Kyle Pitts, who had 1 touchdown all season, has 3. Now, we already knew he had that ability because I thought he was, watching him at Florida, I thought he was going to come in the league and just be a more athletic Gronk. I thought the guy was going to tear up the NFL. And that has obviously not been the case. He's been certainly not a bust. I'd go so far as to say, I wouldn't go, that far, but has not been a productive player consistently in this league. You cannot lose that game if you're Tampa. And so now you find yourself, you're first in the division, first in the worst division of football, the NFC South. But you look up and you're like, oh, okay, we've got Carolina on the road. We're 3-point road favorites in Charlotte. Then he got at Miami. And then you got a home game against Carolina in a game that will probably decide the NFC South. So it's all in front of you. You can win the division for the 5th consecutive year, make the playoffs for the 6th consecutive year. But that is, like I said, that is as inexcusable loss you'll have. And again, didn't get a chance to talk about it on Friday, but that was embarrassing. Already talked to Bills, Patriots, Ravens, Bengals, 24-0. Ravens win. Lamar was solid, only threw 12 passes in the game, but 2 of them went for touchdowns. The story for me was twofold. The Ravens defense, which has been better, as of late, got off to just an atrocious start at the beginning of this year, just like last year, but they've kind of stabilized things. As of late, played pretty well, shut out the Bengals. And the second part of this is, so again, the Ravens are still within reach of my Steelers in the AFC North. I still feel like it's going to come down to the Week 18 showdown in Pittsburgh. We'll see what happens. The story, though, for Cincinnati. So obviously we saw, again, didn't get a chance to react on Friday thanks to having a laptop charger. But Joe Burrow, who outright said, this has not been a fun season of football for me. And it's now officially, thanks to their loss yesterday, 3 consecutive years of missing the playoffs for the Bengals. I did see, I think Schefter reported 12 minutes ago that Joe Burrow is expected to start the Bengals' final 3 games of the season. I have absolutely no idea why. Maybe it's just Joe just wants to play football. And if so, hey, I have a saying, players want to play. Players want to play the game. Joe Burrow loves football. But, excuse me, seeing as this has been a guy who's gotten the absolute ish kicked out of him, an offensive line that has been no higher, I think, than 25th in terms of pass block win rate since Joe Burrow became a Bengal. Now, some of this is Joe Burrow has been a bit injury prone in his career. Remember the appendectomy in 2022, I think it was. But again, the knee injury in his rookie season. You had the wrist injury in 2023. This year, you had the turf toe. I would be, at this point, shocked if he does not request a trade. Shocked. A guy this caliber, who's indisputably at his peak, one of the 4 or 5 best quarterbacks in football, most accurate quarterback in football from the pocket, I think, in the entire sport, with bad offensive line, without a good offensive line, with a cheap front office. We always joke, the Bengals until a few years ago didn't have an indoor practice facility despite playing in Cincinnati, Ohio. I don't know if this is true. You can't trust everything you see on the internet, as we all know. But I saw a report saying that it had snowed the night before in Cincinnati. It was snowed a lot in the Northeast. And that the Bengals didn't commission a team to shovel the snow out of people's seats. Basically, the fans had to get the snow out of their own seats. The Buffalo Bills, I swear, feel like they have 4 snow games a year. And they have a team to clear the field, clear the stands. And then you look at kickoff, it's snowing. It's a lot of white on the ground, but hey, the ground seemed to do a pretty good job making the playing surface safe, making the fan experience more bearable than it would have been otherwise. And the Bengals can't clear snow out of the seats. So it's a notoriously cheap front office that cannot for the life of them put an offensive line ahead of Joe Burrow. cannot put together a defense, as we've seen. They fired Lou Anarumo. Oh, Lou Anarumo's the problem. Funny, he's been decent in Indianapolis, wouldn't you say? No one believes in the coach, Zach Taylor, nor should they. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins are great. It doesn't matter if Joe Burrow's on his back half the time. So, again, the press conference that he had last week, that tells me, like, I'm out of here. I would be beyond shocked if Joe Burrow's not requested trade. Like, all these injuries, the wrist, the turf toe, the knee, like, he had an appendectomy. That wasn't thanks to the Bengals, but we have a long, injury list here with Joe. So get out of Cincinnati as soon as you can, man. As soon as you can. Jaguars over the Jets. Oh, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, I've been waiting. I've been patient all season long. But what did I say before the season began? I picked the Jags to win the AFC South. Picked them to, I didn't bite Indianapolis at all. They've been better than I anticipated. Houston was better than I anticipated. Tennessee was awful, as we all thought. But what did I say about Jacksonville? Is that for all of my belief in Trevor Lawrence, for the upside that's there, best quarterback in high school, best quarterback in college, far and away the number one pick in his draft in 2021. And he's been the best quarterback from that draft, to be fair, but that's not saying much because it wasn't a very good draft. The playoff win in 2022, he got high. I mean, I cannot tell you in the 2023 offseason how many times I repeated the stat. The three highest graded quarterbacks in the second half of 2022 was Mahomes, Burrow, and Trevor Lawrence. And since then, it's been injuries. It's been bad coaches. Some of it's been on Trevor, not great decision-making. And I said this year, okay, Liam Cohen's a smart coach. They've got weapons around you. They put together an offensive line in front of you. The defensive line for Jacksonville can get after the quarterback, and they force turnovers. It's make or break year, man. They paid you like you're an elite quarterback. This is year 5 for you. Like, at some point, we need to see it. And yesterday, Trevor Lawrence, this is not hyperbole, had one of the greatest games any quarterback's ever had in the history of the sport. Show the numbers. 6, not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, 6 total touchdowns, 5 passing, 1 rushing. More on that in a moment. No picks, only a 62% completion. That can get better. 381 total yards, 136.7 rating, a QBR 0 to 100 of 95.9. Don't know where that Southern accent came from, but I guess I just wanted to emphasize it. He is the first player in the history of the NFL to have 300 or more passing yards, 5 or more passing touchdowns, 50 or more rushing yards, and one or more rushing touchdowns in the same game. That has never been done in the history of the sport until Trevor Lawrence yesterday against the Jets. And in the last 3 games, let's put it this way. Since we all carved up our turkey on Thanksgiving Day, from that point to now, Trevor Lawrence has been the best quarterback in the National Football League. Show those numbers. 10 touchdowns, no picks, 59% completion. That needs to improve. But 855 total yards, a 123 rating, QBR 0 to 100 of 81. The Jags are averaging 36 points a game, and they're 3-0 in that stretch. The Houston Texans look amazing right now. That defense is just, I don't even know what you can say at this point. They're outstanding. Jacksonville's going to win this division. They got a tough game against Denver next week, but after that, at Indianapolis, who's falling apart as we see in front of us, and then a home game against Tennessee, who they're going to crush. Like, Trevor's going to be in the playoffs again. The last time he was in, I don't know, down 27-0 into the Chargers, came back and won, and for what it's worth, gave the eventual champion Chiefs a run for their money at Arrowhead Stadium. I've said it over and over. When this guy is healthy and has a half-decent coaching staff, because we know his rookie year, that was the Urban Meyer year, yikes. 2022 got to the playoffs and won a playoff game. 23, at the time, he gets hurt against Baltimore. I think was it Baltimore? Or it might have been somebody else. I forget who it was. It was on a Monday night game. That's what I do remember. At the time he got hurt, this was December, by the way. The Jags were the 1 seed in the AFC. Over Mahomes and the Chiefs, Allen and the Bills, Lamar and the Ravens. Jags were the 1 seed. Then he gets hurt, comes back sooner than he should have, and doesn't look the same the rest of the year. And then last year he was not very good. He was not. Make or break year in 2025, and he has answered the call. And Liam Cohen deserves a lot of credit as well, by the way. He is, we talk about Coach of the Year candidates. It's really been all the first-year guys and Kyle Shanahan. Vrabel in New England, Cohen in Jacksonville, Ben Johnson in Chicago. If they want to just split it in 4, I won't have any problem with it. Those have been the 4 best coaches in the league this year. Trevor Lawrence talked about his improvement, the Jags' improvement after the win.
I thought it was another step for our offense, and just being able to execute in the passing game, move the ball downfield, guys making plays once again. Travis, how about Travis Etienne? Had a huge day today, caught 3 touchdowns. It's pretty crazy from a running back. So I thought we had a great plan. We executed it well, stayed on the field. We were good on third down. That gave us more opportunities, and the guys just played really well. So we got to continue to build on it and take it week by week.
And they do. And again, that Denver game next week, that's at the Broncos, which we know, as we've said in the show, is a tough place to go win. But Denver's only a field goal favorite, which is that Vegas disrespecting Denver because they were a 2.5-point dog at home to the Packers last week? Maybe. But I'm looking forward to seeing that one. Like I said, since we ate turkey and pumpkin pie and, cranberry sauce and whatever you eat at Thanksgiving, from that point to now, there's been no quarterback. Stafford is a possible exception, but even Stafford had a rough game in this stretch. There's been no quarterback in the league better than Trevor Lawrence. I'm not, listen, you can get mad at me. I'm just reporting the facts, okay? I'm just reporting the facts. 10 touchdowns and no picks. And the Jags are averaging 36 a game. Pretty good. What are some of the other games we had? I already talked Chargers, Chiefs, Cardinals, Texans. Stroud played really well. The Texans defense is amazing. That goes without saying. Bears over the Browns. I'll tell you something. 31-3 was the final score in Chicago. That was a game where the weather, I think it was like 12 degrees at kickoff. And for context, here in Tennessee, where I live, it was about 12 degrees last night. And in between the afternoon games and the Cowboy game, I went out for a run, as I tend to do sometimes for cardio. And it was really cold. Like 12. Listen, I lived in Florida earlier this year. Man, I haven't felt that kind of cold in a while. Chicago, y'all are used to it. Watching the Bears offense, the only thing that gave away how cold it was the shots of the fans bundled up in the stands and the fact that you could see the players' breath. That was it. Because by the Bears offense, you could not tell. Caleb Williams, can we show Caleb's numbers? Yesterday, do we have those? Against a great Browns defense for Myles Garrett, 2 more sacks, 2 touchdowns, no picks, 60% completion. Again, that's a knock on Caleb. He's got to be more accurate. 242 pass yards, 112 rating, a QBR 0 to 100 of 67.6 QBR for Caleb. You got to admit, as wrong as I was on the Chiefs this year, I think I was equally right on Caleb Williams and the Chicago Bears. Second half of the year, once we got to November, now we're in mid-December, they just get better and better. And look at the Chicago Bears as the number 2 seed in the stacked NFC. Look at Caleb Williams. Does not throw interceptions. Looked comfortable in the pocket week after week, despite Myles Garrett getting a couple sacks yesterday. The Bears' run game is second best in the league right now. I said it a few weeks ago after they beat Philly, like they can go to a Super Bowl. You run the ball like that, you control the line of scrimmage like that, the way their whole offensive line does, you play mistake-free football and give just throws. We don't have the rights to show the footage. Throws that what Caleb Williams had yesterday when he's rolling to his right and throws it back corner of the end zone for a touchdown. It's throws like that why folks like me said, yeah, like that's a generational talent. If he gets the right coaching, right system around him, he can be a transformative talent in this league. And you're seeing it week after week. Still got a ways to go. Still got to improve the accuracy. That's going to be the thing for Caleb going to next year. Like, I'm sure he's going to work with Ben Johnson, with the receivers. Like, hey, let's get that to like 64%. And then from there, it's kind of like what Josh Allen did. Remember Josh Allen, rookie year, only 52% completion. Now, mid-60s. Like, he's not going to be Joe Burrow in that regard, but he's going to be pretty good. Caleb's got to get to that similar stage. And when he does, he's going to be a top 5 quarterback. He just is. Like, I don't trust the health of Burrow. I don't know what Lamar and Josh's careers are going to look like because of the hits they take. Patrick, we'll see. But, God, this guy's good. And this running game's good. The 2 guys I believed in as the 2 best quarterback prospects that I had seen evaluating draft prospects since Andrew Luck in 2012, Lawrence and Caleb, looking pretty good right now. Shout out to the Bears. Big win yesterday. 29-21 Commanders over the Giants. Only notable news from that game is Washington hurt their draft positioning, and the news came out today. Not shocking. This news should have came earlier in the season that Mariota's going to start the last 3 games of the season. They're not going to bring Jay Daniels back, nor should they. Let that guy rest up. He's been beat to hell this season. Let him get an early start in the offseason. Eagles mollywopped the Raiders yesterday, 31-0. I had the Eagles winning, obviously, because they're better than the Raiders, but I had Vegas plus 11 because I'm like, they had a couple nice drives with Kenny Pickett last week, who, yes, I'm a Steelers fan. I know he sucks. But for Philadelphia, it's, oh my God, can he do something offensively? And they had a few moments where they didn't look so good. Dallas Goedert dropped a routine touchdown pass in the red zone early in the game, but Jalen Hurts was amazing. All of the calls for the Eagles to bench him. Listen, Jalen has never been a natural thrower of the football. That goes without saying. Some folks were knocking, he's only 6 foot tall. A lot of the best quarterbacks are 6. Brady was talking about this last week. Most of the greatest quarterbacks ever, 6'2" and above. Like Drew Brees is kind of an outlier there. But with that being said, folks are like, Tanner McKee gives us a better shot to win games than Jalen Hurts. Out of your effing minds? No, is he not allowed to have a bad stretch of football? And it's been a month, I get it. But does the Super Bowl MVP not get a little bit more leash than that? Like, I know Philadelphia fans, a lot of fans in the Northeast, Philly, Boston, New York can be kind of reactionary, but guys, who's Tanner McKee? Oh, he had a couple nice drives in the preseason against the Bengals one time. Like, what are we doing? That's crazy. I'll tell you what was also not crazy, but also great to see. Phillip Rivers. Now, as expected, 5 years away from the game. Didn't always look sharp. The arm velocity left a few things to be desired. He had 18 completions for, 120 yards. Like, it was, we're talking get the ball to your hands quick type of offense for Indianapolis. But watching that game, and I thought Seattle was one of my if I were a Batman picks, and of course they didn't get the job done in that regard. 6 field goals saved the day for them. But watching that game, if you're a Colts fan, if you're an NFL fan, there was such a, and I don't use this word much in sports, mostly because I think it is something that gets overused, especially in sports like baseball or sports with long periods of tradition. But there was almost a purity in watching Phillip Rivers yesterday. Like, man, I mean, we saw the pregame images of him with the ball cap on and the Colts gear. It's like, oh boy, I don't know how this is going to look out there today. He's probably gained about 10, 15 pounds post-career. He wasn't that athletic to begin with. And he just goes out there, man, he's slinging it. He had the game-ending interception, but he's slinging it. He helps get the Colts in field goal range where they take the lead late. Darnold and the Seahawks come up clutch. Rashid Shaheed, who was one of the best gets of the trade deadline from the Saints, came up big for Seattle at the end. But just play Phillip Rivers after the game and play that soundbite because, they were showing footage of his former players because he's a high school coach. His former players just jumping up and down. He throws that touchdown. He's fired up. This is Phillip Rivers talking after the game, and if he's not the easiest guy to root for in the NFL, I don't know who is.
Maybe it will, I don't know, inspire or teach, not to run or be scared of what may or may not happen, Hopefully, certainly I think of my sons and those ball players, that I'm in charge of at the school, that they'll say, like, crap, coach wasn't scared. You know what I mean? It's like, shoot, sometimes there is doubt, and it's real. And again, you can the guaranteed safe bet is to go home or to not go for it. And the other one is, shoot, let's see what happens.
I mean, how cool is that? And he postponed, just by virtue of coming back, he postponed his Hall of Fame eligibility another 5 years because we imagine Phillip Rivers is probably not going to be playing quarterback next year. But he came back for one reason: love of the game. Like, he knows the chances of the Colts winning the Super Bowl are basically nothing. They had been struggling before they signed Phillip Rivers. The injury to Daniel Jones and to Riley Leonard is why they signed, and Anthony Richardson is why they signed Phillip Rivers. 5 years post playing after he ended his career with the Colts. Again, there was just something pure about watching that game yesterday. It was really, really cool. And if you watch his full press conference, because everybody loved Phillip Rivers to begin with, but that just enhanced it even more. And so, and again, you've seen the video on social media of his players at high school jumping out, let's go, coach. It was so cool. It really, really was. Is there any other games to talk about? Or are we going right in? Saints beat the Panthers 20-17 on a walk-off field goal. Saints executed a really good game-winning drive strategy at the very end, managing the clock. So Saints have won 2 in a row. So they aren't the worst team in the league, like I thought they would before the season. So I guess that's some compliment. Although they do certainly hurt their chances of getting Fernando Mendoza, which if you're a Saints fan, you would love to have that guy in the dome. Okay. So that's our NFL week recap, week 15. We'll do Dolphins Steelers prediction in about 10 minutes or so because there's something else I wanted to kind of talk about post talking about the trip to New York. But so as some of you out there know, I went to New York City last week, and we have a few pictures. This is me at the Christmas tree at Rockefeller Center, which is just as incredible in person as it is on television when they light it every year in early December. It is, I still just walk in the streets of New York for the first time, Manhattan in particular. I don't know how they get the tree there. Like, New York traffic is as crazy as as is advertised. Honestly, walking the city I thought was going to be a little bit more difficult than it was. It really wasn't. Enjoy my time there. Went into a number of stores. The NBA store in New York City, obviously, as a huge basketball fan, drew my attention. It was crazy. The shopping in the city is off the charts. The food was excellent. We had an Italian joint. I'm forgetting the name of it right now, but an Italian joint that was really, really good. And then on Monday night, this past Monday, ended up at a diner, the 24 Diner, because it's on 24th Street in Manhattan. Got the opportunity, finally, long overdue, to meet up with my guys, Alfred Parsard Jr. and Barry Grant Jr. Alfred, the host of the Metropolitan Report, and Barry, the host of the All Even podcast, both content creators, podcasters here on the Grid Network, and two very, very, very dear friends of mine. Got a chance to have a meal with them. My family was there. It was great. Some great conversations. We spent, I think, like 3 hours, and it felt like it went by in like a half hour. It was just great to see those guys in person. Definitely gonna have to do it again. You're gonna have to come to Tennessee now, guys. Like that's part of the deal. Knoxville, Nashville, like whatever. Y'all gotta come to Tennessee now. But yeah, it was just a blast. It had some great laughs, great deep conversations. Obviously, of course, we talked about sports. We talked about the Mets. This is before the Mets off season really kind of went to hell, and Alfred and Barry have been reacting to that accordingly. But it's just a great, great time with both those gentlemen, and we have to do it again soon. Let's put it that way. And then also, the reason I was in New York City is because I got the opportunity to be invited to be on an episode of Clash. Now, for those who don't know what Clash is a debate style format show that House of Highlights does. And so if you haven't seen Clash, you've seen a show like Clash. You know that Jubilee does those debates where it's like one blank versus 20 blanks. Well, House of Highlights with Clash basically does the same thing. Like, it's one fan of whoever or whatever team versus 10 haters. Well, again, can't spoil too much, but the episode was about Carmelo Anthony, and the fan of Carmelo Anthony debated with the other 10 of us, and I was a Carmelo Anthony hater. I like Melo as a dude, but I've always felt his career was extremely overrated, and you'll see some of that in this episode. Again, House of Highlights hasn't let us know when it's going to come out, but just show a few pictures here. So this is me with a Steph Curry jersey. The studio's really dope. I don't think I was able to get a picture of the studio on here in time. Matter of fact, I think I might try and go ahead and do that, because I think I've got the graphic on here somewhere to show y'all what that's all about. Oh, I guess, no, okay, we actually don't have the picture. But yeah, there's the House of Highlights, logo in the studio. They've got it, like, you can see one of the chairs right there. They got a big TV, with the House of Highlights logo, with all the chairs. And then there's me at the debate desk, giving it to the Carmelo Anthony fan. But yeah, I will be collaborating potentially as soon as Wednesday's show with some of the content creators that were part of that show. Very, very excited to do that. And as far as the Carmelo Anthony fan, great guy. Cannot recommend him enough. We will be collaborating on my show and on his show. He has a big platform soon. Again, I don't think I'm allowed to say who it is quite yet, but very excited about that. There was also a Caitlin Clark episode that happened right before us with a very well-known NBA content creator that was cool, and did it at the Warner Brothers Studios. It was a dope experience. It really, really was. And I hope you guys will enjoy it. Once it comes out, like I said, we'll be advertising the crap out of it on this show and putting clips on social media, the whole bit. But it was a first time in New York City, and it exceeded expectations. And I just got a little bit of Manhattan. Like, I was Queens, the Bronx, like, only saw a tiny, tiny bit of the city, because, as we all know, it is absolutely gigantic. But seeing Barry and Alfred there, and the experiences in the city, great food, great experiences, small hotel room, but such is the lay of that city, that they got to fit a lot of people in there, and being part of House of Highlights Clash, can't beat that. And by the way, the pizza was as good as advertised. I had a joint Bravo pizza, kind of like a hole in the wall. I forgot where it was. Was it, I forget what the exact location was. I think they have multiple locations, but Bravo Pizza, good. I couldn't recommend it more. Like, I mean, and the slices too in New York are just like, I mean, the size of my face. I mean, it's huge. And so, but yeah, shout out City It Never Sleeps, man. Hopefully can go back soon to New York and see more next time, because we're there from Sunday afternoon, Sunday night to Tuesday night. And it was a great experience, and very excited for y'all to see House of Highlights clash. Very excited to do that. Gonna take a quick break, and when we come back, I did want to address something else before we get to. Actually, let's do this in the appropriate order. Miami Dolphins, Pittsburgh Steelers from Pittsburgh. So again, my Steelers. The game kicks off in like a half hour, but my Steelers are favored by a field goal at home. I don't know what to do with this game, because on one hand, it's okay. TJ Watt's out because he had a punctured lung, ended up having to go to the hospital. JJ Watt reported, hey, he's doing fine, he's recovering, but obviously he's not going to play this week. We'll see what his availability is for next week against Detroit. But in games TJ Watt misses, the Pittsburgh Steelers are not very good. They're 1-10. They do not win without TJ Watt. But on the other hand, in Pittsburgh, PA, I think it's something like 15 degrees there. Let me double check. 18 degrees. My bad. Okay, it's a little warmer than I expected. But it's going to get down to as low as 15, 16 degrees in Pittsburgh. And it's chilly. It's December. Across the country, it's cold, except in Florida, basically. And on the other side of the coin, it's, darn it, man. What helps the Steelers is the Miami Dolphins don't win in cold weather much. We talked about two in cold weather, but how about this Dolphins stat? Andrew Filipponi, who, radio guy in Pittsburgh, he put this stat. It's pretty remarkable. The Dolphins have existed since 1966. So, 6 years of existence. They have won 2 games in their history when the weather is 20 degrees or colder. 1985 at Green Bay, 2008 at Kansas City. So, and it's not that shocking. It's a warm weather team playing in Miami. Never been in Miami, but obviously lived in Florida for 4 months. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to go back to Florida after being there for Thanksgiving. They're not used to temperatures like this. And I will say there's an element of Miami's game plan that we know it's a catch the ball. It's a lot of screen passes. A lot of the Dolphins offense happens behind the line of scrimmage, whether it's running the football, which they've done better as of late. The Steelers struggle to stop the run, which does scare me. And then screen passes to Jalen Waddle and company. So even if TJ Watt had played, unless you get Miami into like a 3rd and 12 or worse situation, it's not really a spot where TJ can just tee off and come after Tua. It's going to be a lot of get the ball out quick. I expect a low-scoring-ish type of a game. But the Pittsburgh Steelers have not lost a Monday night contest since 1991. Not lost a home Monday night football game since 1991. So I will go with the Steelers. I do think we barely cover the 3 points. 24-20. Listen, when I looked at the schedule, and I was not high on the Steelers, as y'all know, before the year, but when I looked at the schedule, it's like, oh, Dolphins, that's a win. That's Tua in cold weather. We knew it was week 15, mid-December. This bodes very, very well for the Steelers. Opportunity to keep the one-game lead in the division over Baltimore, which is huge. Again, I still think the AFC North is going to come out of that clash in week 18 in Pittsburgh. Thankfully, the Steelers have fallen to the advantage. Gold end zones. Thank God for this game as well. Steelers should have gold end zones the whole season. I hate that they only do it December or later, but nonetheless, it's going to be very, very exciting. Steelers get the W by a final score of 24-20 over the Miami Dolphins, but I'd be lying to you if I said it didn't scare me just a little bit. Take a 1-minute break and come back, because I did want to address something very, very important at the end of today's show in just 1 minute here on Carving Up Live. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Wanted to address something before we got out here. This has been, as we tended, or at least certainly try to do on the show, very fun, upbeat, lighthearted sports commentary, but occasionally we'll discuss real world stuff on the show. And to say the very least, this was a pretty crappy weekend around the world. So you have on Friday night the shooting at Brown University, which leaves 2 dead and 9 injured. And it just, man, it goes to, first of all, let's get the most important thing out of the way. Prayers. I know this gets old, but genuinely, prayers for the families and the loved ones of those that lost their lives. I always say this, I cannot even fathom what they're going through, and prayers for those that are injured, that they recover, not just physically, but psychologically as well, because going through any event like that is traumatizing, to say the very least. And matter of fact, I think one of the survivors was also a survivor of the Parkland shooting in Florida 7 years ago. So it's like, gosh darn it, man. Like, you're in 2 mass shootings in your lifetime. It's devastating. So, and Steve Kerr talked about it before the Warriors game against Portland last night. And Kerr's been a champion for policies that would keep people safe from gun violence for years now, because his dad was a victim of gun violence. And I thought he hit the nail on the head again, in the sense that, man, the vast majority of gun owners in this country are law-abiding citizens. I mean, we know that. That goes without saying. And as has been the case for the last 2.5 decades, the ultimate villains in this are the gun lobbyists. Always have been. The villains in a lot of issues in politics are the lobbyists, are those who have the politicians in their pockets, are those who basically are Geppetto and the politicians are Pinocchio. I mean, that's what it is. I mean, there was not long ago, 3 Republican presidents. 2 I know for certain. One, I think, Gerald Ford, Ronald Reagan, and I think George H.W. Bush were pro-gun control. Why was that? No NRA, no gun lobbyists, no people that were paying untold amounts of money to these lawmakers to not institute policies that would keep citizens safe. And so I've said it, I've talked about gun violence more times than I would like to on the show, but it's a topic that I am deeply passionate about. Solutions are right there in front of us. They are. And none of which would infringe on the Second Amendment rights of law-abiding citizens. None. It's absolutely devastating that we keep finding ourselves in this position, because we won't do anything. We refuse. We, as in, I shouldn't say we're not the ones who's responsible for it. It's the politicians for not putting legislation in place that would enforce better mental health regulations, that would enforce far more strenuous process to purchase a gun. It is more difficult to purchase a car than to purchase a firearm. Like, what are we doing? So again, I've been on this for years on this show, but it's sickening. Then, and again, we're sort of working out of order here, but last night, watching the Cowboy game, see on my phone that the legendary director Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle were tragically murdered in their home, likely by their son. And just, again, I didn't consume a lot of Rob Reiner's content. You've got A Few Good Men. You've got When Harry Met Sally. You've just got a list of things. He had a career as an actor back in, on successful show in the 70s. But based on the people that did know him, seemed like a really wonderful guy. When there was a form of political violence, as we talked about the show a few months ago, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, he could not have been more diplomatic's the wrong way to put it, but he saw the humanity in a guy that he fundamentally disagreed with in terms of policy. And I think as most sane-minded Americans did. And so to see that news is just utterly gut-wrenching. And so prayers for the family. I think their daughters who found them. I can't even fathom it. So Rob Reiner, Michelle Singer Reiner, may they rest in peace, and praying for their family and loved ones. And then lastly, as we saw over the weekend, the Bondi Beach massacre, first night of Hanukkah, takes the lives of, according to reports I just checked during the break, of at least 15 people. And kudos to the hero who stepped in, saved the day, took the gun from the terrorist, and ended any more violence being caused. You know, and I will take full accountability for this man. Because anytime I've discussed politics, anytime I've discussed human rights of any kind, I have not done a good enough job on this show of talking about the plight recently that we have seen worldwide of Jews and of Christians, of which I am a Christian. The massacre that has happened to my fellow believers around the world is just, it's gut-wrenching. And as far as those going after Jews in a violent way, just in the United States, I saw the stat earlier today. In 2024, anti-Semitic attacks were up 344%. I mean, what are we doing? Is that when you see a scenario, people talk about how how a tragedy, how a terrible world event like the Holocaust could possibly happen. Man, it didn't just happen in a day. Something like that does not just pop up out of nowhere in Germany and in some of these Nazi anti-Semitic countries. It's a slow boil, as anything is. And any form of violence or hate. Like, it's a slow, slow form of vitriol that happens, to the point where influential voices like Nick Fuentes become somewhat kind of mainstream. People who just straight up despise Jewish people. In the case of Fuentes, he despises literally anyone who's not a straight heterosexual Christian white man. But that's, again, we're seeing a level of anti-Semitism worldwide that anti-Semitism nobody should be comfortable with, but that I'm finding increasingly alarming. Worldwide, here in the United States, again, anti-Semitic violence up 344% last year. It's devastating. And so for the three tragedies that we saw over the weekend, obviously prayers for the Reiner family and for all of those that knew Rob and his wife, Michelle, and the family too. The fact that it was almost certainly the son that did this. I can't even imagine the emotions that the family's going through right now. So prayers for them, prayers for the victims of the Brown shooting, and prayers that we can finally, for once and for all, do something as it relates to gun violence, which has pervaded our society in America for the last quarter century plus. And then as for the Bondi Beach shooting, praying for all those impacted families, loved ones. Biggest shout out ever to the hero who ended the violence. And we've got to start. I apologize for not doing it enough on my show. We got to start being vocal about the plight and the hatred that Jewish people are facing in America and around the world. And the plight that Christians are facing around the world, the persecution, religious persecution that they are facing worldwide. And so, definitely an unfortunate way to end the show, to say the very least, but I didn't want to mix that in with, hey, let's talk about Matthew Stafford after this. Like, I wanted the most important part of the show to come at the end. So, with that is all the time we have for today's show. Okay, my mic's back. Apologize for that. That is all the time for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carvip Live. We're going to have a loaded episode on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on YouTube, as well as on Twitch, X, Instagram, and Facebook, and all the platforms. We're trying to get on TikTok. We're was trying to work with that today. We're sooner rather than later, we're going to be live. The show's going to be live on TikTok, so very much looking forward to that. I'm going to go upstairs and watch the Steelers game. Let's go Pittsburgh. Let's get the W over the Miami Dolphins. Have a great week, everybody. Please continue to stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. Seriously, Pittsburgh, can you win a game in cold weather against the Dolphins? Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.